Hello, and welcome to tonight's Bruin Family Insights virtual discussion brought to you by UCLA Parent and Family Programs. Throughout the academic year, we engage around a variety of topics and issues intended to help you best support your student. My name is Leanne Kowiak, and I'm from Tampa, Florida. I am a Bruin parent and a member of the UCLA Parents Council leadership team. My daughter is going to be a third year this fall, and tonight's conversation is all about UCLA housing and residential life. We will explore the ins and outs of housing procedures, discuss the resources available to our students while living on campus, and learn how to best support our Bruins as they navigate the on-campus living experience. This evening, I am very excited to have with us two individuals, Sarah Molitoris, who is the resident director for Rieber Terrace, and Martine Quiros, assistant resident director for Sproul Cove and Landing. Thank you both for joining us. Can you each please start us off by telling us a little bit about yourself and your current role? Sarah?
Hi, my name is Sarah Molitoris. I go by Sarah Mo. I'm the current resident director for Rieber Terrace this next year. Previously, I've worked in Canyon Point and Hitch Suites in the past, so different kinds of housing. Before coming to UCLA, I actually came here to do the Master's in Student Affairs program in the School of Education, so I'm also a Bruin alumni. And before coming here, I worked in residential life in San Diego, Arizona, Ohio, and at my undergrad, Michigan Tech. I'm originally from Michigan, and I love working in UCLA Res Life.
Thank you, Sarah. Martine, can you please introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Martine Quiros, and I am, like Leanne said, the assistant resident director for Sproul Cove and Landing. And a little bit about myself, I actually graduated from here in 2017. I started as a first year way back in 2013 and finished with a Chicano Studies major. And in my time here, I was very active within residential life. I was a student government position in my second year, a resident assistant in my third year in the Genève community, and then again, a resident assistant for my fourth year and also in the Genève community as well. And also in my time, one of the best memories I had has been a new student advisor working for orientation and handling all of those transitions there. And then I liked working in student affairs so much, and that's what led me to apply to this particular position right now. And now I should be entering my sixth year in just here at UCLA. Last year, I was an assistant resident director for the Rieber Terrace community, and I'm so excited to see where this year just takes me.
Thank you so much, Martine. Well, thank you both for sharing. And it sounds like you both have so much experience and a great conversation for all of us this evening. I know as parents, there are many questions, and the insight that you'll be able to provide for tonight's conversation is just going to be so welcoming and so helpful. To get us started, I would like to pose the following question to each of you. Sarah, we'll start with you. Why do you think living on campus is such a great experience for students while they are in college?
Absolutely. I think living on campus is a great experience because it puts you right next to where you're going to class. The style and the format of being in college compared to high school or community college is a little bit different, especially at an institution like UCLA. So I think like putting yourself as close as possible to those classes makes it just that much easier to get yourself like to campus and also to be involved and meet people. I think it really helps you build the relationships and the connections that really make UCLA feel like home. I also think that living on campus, it's a beautiful place to live. Los Angeles is an expensive place to live, so it's really nice to be in the proximity and to not have to navigate some of those like transportation challenges, although that's like very doable.
That's great. Thank you. Martine, how would you respond to that one?
I would definitely echo everything that Sarah just said. And then above all else, I do want to stress that I think one of the best things about living on campus is the aspect of being so much closer to any academic resources. If you ever do need it, there's a variety of tutoring that can happen after hours, such as after like 5 p.m. and just being able to live here, just let you to be able to take advantage of everything about that.
Thank you, Martine. Well, why don't we get started? I will tell the audience out there that we have so many questions this evening. If we cannot get to all of them, we will get back to you in the next week or two with the responses. So we enjoy having all these questions. And the first one we will pose to Martine. Martine, if you could tell us about The Hill and the various living communities it encompasses. How are these communities and their residents organized?
Awesome. Well, The Hill is what I like to say is a huge community built of a variety of mini communities. And just to talk about just the surface level of what all of them are built up, there's 4 different types of living communities that students can live in. There is the traditional residence halls. Those are the ones where they live on a floor with a community bathroom and there's no air conditioning within the rooms. Then there's the deluxe residence halls, which is basically a little step up in the sense of amenities, which is a community bathroom as well, and then more air conditioning added to those particular rooms. And then after that, there's plazas, and there's a variety of different plazas we have to offer. We have shared plazas where rooms share within a bathroom, as well as the private plazas, which each room get their own particular private bathroom. And then the last type of style that we have is our suites, in which it's basically kind of like a mini apartment just without a kitchen, where there's 2 rooms that are connected and they share like this really well-sized living room. And then that one also doesn't have air conditioning, and that's just basically what makes up the variety of just the different types of living environments that we have here. But I do want to stress, even though we're one huge community, each different community strives to create their own inclusive and loving and supportive community with a variety of ways. For example, in every community, there's student staff members that are there to help just support and just ease all the transitions that helps just any resident that lives there, first year, second years, third years or more, just make more friends, especially those who are in any singles within the communities. These different activities allow them and give them that space to come out and meet those friends, so everyone can start making friends at this large university and help them actually make this large university feel a lot smaller. Yeah, and then another thing I do want to add about the different communities and how they're built up, we do offer 12 different living learning communities on this amazing place that we call The Hill, where basically each living learning community has one either main interest or identity of some sort that is tailored, and anyone that wants to come either learn about that particular identity or interest or has a passion of that identity or interest has an option to choose to live in these particular communities. And throughout the year, variety of the engagements that are put on are tailored within that particular identity or that interest. And the best part about these living learning communities, I think, is that all of the events that happen in these living learning communities aren't just exclusive for the particular community. Anyone across the hill, if they want to come to any of their larger scale events or even their smaller scale events, they can come and just enjoy and start meeting new students. I think that's one of my favorite aspects, is that we always strive to welcome students in any different community. There's hardly any exclusivity. If like one community is having this like big event, anyone, regardless if you live there or not, you can come and just experience it and make new friends along the process.
That's awesome, Martine. You've answered, there were a bunch of questions that came in around this general topic, and you've answered many of them. Specifically, we'll just touch a few of them before we go on to the next question. Are there rules around playing music? And if you have a single, is it easy to stay connected with other students?
There aren't necessarily rules around like there is a noise policy that we have here, but there isn't rules around like certain types of music that you can play. Everyone can listen to whatever they want, as long as it doesn't ever get too disruptive. Our quiet hours here start they go from Sunday through Thursday, and they start at 10 p.m. and they go all around until 7 a.m. the next day, I believe. And then on Friday and Saturday, quiet hours then start at midnight and then proceed the following night all the way till 7 a.m. the next day. And I think at the end of the quarter, we go on a quarter system here. We have weeks 1 all the way through 10, and after that is finals week. We get a little bit more strict with our quiet hours then. Starting week 10, we have this thing called 22 hours of quiet, just because it's a very stressful time, and we try to best to create the best positive academic study environment as possible. That's when 22 hours of the day, we hold our quiet hours. They're strictly enforced. We're from 5 to 7 p.m. from throughout week 10 and all finals week, that is when people can be moderately noisy. But throughout the rest of the school year, as long as students are just being respectful and mindful, because even though we have quiet hours that start later in the day, there's always 24-hour courtesy hours is what we call it, in the sense of if you are blasting your music and you can hear it like more than 2 doors down, you should probably turn it down just to be respectful and mindful of everyone else around you.
Okay, well, thank you. And just one other question, and this one's coming in from Joanne K. What are some of the issues that many freshmen encounter, Martin?
I think one of the biggest issues that freshmen tend to encounter is just that transition into the community, that fear of like, I'm starting fresh or brand new. Some people come here with friends, other people don't. And it's just that issue of how they can ease that transition, how they can make new friends, and then just make this community their home.
I would add on to that really quickly, that I think sometimes a common issue I see with first-year students is that they come in and the very first people that they meet, they think that those people have to be their best friends in college. It sounds kind of counterintuitive, but I think being open-minded about the fact that you're going to meet people throughout your entire UCLA experience, and like, at least from my personal experience in college, some of my best friends that I've stayed in closest contact with are people that I didn't meet until my junior or senior year. Because like we met because of like shared experiences or shared interests, or we had a lot of classes together. And so I think a lot of times people like want those like relationships really quickly, and those are they're often really great. But I think being open to like continuing to meet new people, and a lot of first year students, if they don't feel that click, like maybe with their roommate or with their floor right away, they get nervous, when in reality, like sometimes you feel that click a couple weeks in, not like the very first like 48 hours.
Thank you. All right. Well, moving on to the next question. Are there any off-campus housing options affiliated with UCLA? Martine, you want to take this?
Of course. Sorry, I forgot to turn off my mic for a quick second. So yes, there are some off-campus apartments that are associated with UCLA. These are the UCLA University apartments. They're very limited in number, but there's still enough where if you want to go try that within your guaranteed housing you get here for 3 years, you can totally do that. But they do get filled up really quickly. And then after that, you have to try your best to just find some sort of apartment nearby. But the further you get from UCLA, it actually gets least expensive because of you're getting away from Westwood and in a little bit less luxurious environments. But I do say, starting for the past couple of years and up until I believe August 1st, we have this resource called the Community Housing Office, cho.ucla.edu. But after that, after this upcoming August, it's not going to be in use anymore because housing is moving away. And I think they're going to produce other methods to help just parents or students figure out different off-campus living environments that aren't associated with the UCLA University apartments.
Thank you. So here's a follow-up question from Diana M. Regarding the UCLA apartments. So are there RAs there, and is there any type of a transportation? Let's say somebody's studying in the library very late and doesn't feel comfortable walking back to the UCLA off-campus apartment.
So we have two different UCLA University apartment regions. We call University Apartments North and University Apartments South. And in one of them, and in each of them, we have two different types of student staff. They aren't necessarily RAs, but in one of them, we have community assistants still. And then the other one, they are called apartment RAs, so an ARA, basically. But they still don't do necessarily what the RAs do here on the Hill. But they are able there to provide support. And if there's any issues in their apartments and they need to call somebody, it is definitely most likely them that will come and handle for a particular issue. But in regards to just transportation to and from, UCLA offers this service van that operates after, I believe, 7 p.m. and goes until maybe 10 to midnight. Don't quote me on those hours just yet. But it's definitely later on in the night for students that want to just come from campus and get a ride to drop them in a nice location within the university apartments, general apartment areas, and then just takes them back and forth.
Okay, thank you, Martine. All right, so Sarah, I'm going to move on to question number 3, please, and if you can take this. For our new Bruin families, how does the roommate selection process happen, and when are students notified of their housing assignment, And how are triple housing assignments managed?
People always want to ask about the triples. So you don't, I think a common misconception is like, you don't have to come in with a roommate. I would say, honestly, some of the most successful like roommate pairings are people that meet each other for the first time when they move in. So if you are not someone coming in with a roommate, do not be nervous at all. I think it's a really great opportunity to meet someone new and kind of like have this like blank slate relationship that you can build off of at the UCLA housing environment. Like it's a really great experience. So don't be nervous about that. If you do have a roommate, when you fill out your roommate application, there's a space on the portal where you can preference someone that you would like to live with. If you don't do that though, you'll just randomly get assigned. A lot of times people ask when they come to new student orientation, maybe you meet someone at orientation, you really like them. If you are in the same building type as them, so for example, if you're both going to be assigned to a plaza, you can preference them, especially if you're in the same plaza in the same building. You can preference them as a roommate, and housing will do their best, even if it's after the timeline, to match you up. Otherwise, they'll just match you up with someone whose preferences match yours. So when you fill out all of your housing information online, you select things like about what time you want to go to bed, if you're a smoker or a non-smoker, and some other like noise preferences, cleanliness preferences. And so they try to match you up with people who fit your needs on those areas, because those are kind of some of the things that we notice over time that people tend to have like challenges negotiating with roommates if one person's super messy and one is super clean. And so they try to match based on that. I would say as an incoming student, you should expect to be in a triple. All of our incoming students and many of our upperclassmen are in triples. We do have a very high occupancy on the Hill of like how many people live here. I think a triple is a really great opportunity to meet not just one person, but two in that process. I think the challenge with a triple is it's really hard to have an equal relationship with all three people. It's just kind of natural in life sometimes when you get three people together that two people will like each other more than they like with a third. So I would say just keep in mind that you're going to want to, be open-minded about like having a slightly different relationship with each roommate, and that being an okay thing. Like you don't have to be best friends with all of your roommates. Some people find that. Some people just want to live with someone that they can like comfortably share a space in and like know that they can like go to sleep like quietly at the end of the night. And so it's kind of like up to you what you're looking for. In terms of like navigating that like roommate relationship building, all of our resident assistants do like a roommate contract at the start of each fall quarter. And then if you, for some reason, have a new roommate or someone moves out, they'll redo that roommate contract with you each time someone is in the room. People moving in and out is not very common. So usually it's just something you do once a year. And then if you want to revisit it, so maybe after you live with them for one quarter, you're like, actually, I'd like to make some updates. I thought I was okay sharing my Cheez-Its, but no, I'm not so sure. And so, or maybe you didn't realize how much they like Cheez-Its. So you want to update it. So you can talk with your RA, you can organize a sit-down meeting with all your roommates, and you can update that at that time. I would say if you ever have any challenges, a very high proportion of our roommate relationships are fantastic. It's a very low percentage of students that we actually see coming through to their RA and to the resident director or their assistant resident director to talk about their roommate relationship. I mean, it happens every year. Like, you can put two people that seem like they're perfectly matched on paper and then they just don't click. So we have processes in place for mediating roommate conflicts. That's always what we try to do first. And then if it's really not working, we have like ways of like facilitating like roommate switches. We have like these room swap nights where you can go and meet other people that want to switch roommates. It's not that common. It's not that many people that have to go through that process. I mean, we have about 14,000 students that live on the Hill, and at each roommate swap night, there won't be more than like, some of them, there's less than 100 people there. So it's a really high proportion of people's roommate relationships that are going great. I'm trying to think, decisions of who your roommate will be and your specific room number and everything like that will come out at the very end of August. I would expect that via email.
Thank you for that very lengthy description. Very helpful, though. Very helpful. Here's a question from a parent, Ann G. She says, we are at a loss as to what type of room we are paying for. Don't know if it's a single, double, or triple, how much it actually costs. An estimate is fine. And the bills that we have received so far were posted 5 days in advance of payment due. How do we get better access to all of this information in a timely manner? Is there a payment schedule with hard numbers available to us?
Yeah, the best place for any payment information would be on the UCLA housing website. They post like a schedule of like when those dates are going to be and like what proportion is due when. And then like you can always check your student's billing account online. But if you ever have any questions, the housing staff, they're open, I think it's like 9 a.m. until about noontime, and then they take like a lunch break. And then they're open from about 1 until 4 o'clock. They're really great on the phone. Every time I call them, they're so helpful. So I would say if you have any questions like that, don't hesitate to call the housing office.
Okay, great. I have a question that just came in, actually, and it's from Jonathan D. How hard is it to change your roommates?
It depends on like the type of change. And so I would say like, first of all, I would always go in with like an open mind. I really do think a very high proportion of our roommate relationships work out really well. And so I wouldn't anticipate that that's a process you're going to need to go through. If you find yourself feeling like it's not working, go talk to your resident assistant. You will meet them at move-in for sure. And then you will work with either your resident assistant or your resident director. So each building on the Hill has a professional staff member that works full time and lives in the building, secret locations. And we're here just to support you and help you. Our assistant resident directors also are there for that kind of support as well. But you would often, for a roommate conflict, go through the resident director, and we would talk about whether like what a room change option might look like, what the timeline is. It really depends on the time of year. I will say at the very start of each quarter, we do a freeze where we don't allow any room moves at all for at least a week. And then at that point, because people are still checking in, so we need to make sure that we know exactly who is on campus, that all the bed spaces are filled. And if they're not, then we can like look at potential room swaps. But you would definitely go through your resident assistant for that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for that information, Sarah. All right, I'm going to move on to question number 5 because we had a lot of questions. Martine, I'm going to ask you to kick it off, but the question is, Move-In Weekend is a pretty streamlined process. Please share how the weekend structured and what families can do ahead of time to alleviate the stress of this process. And again, there are so many questions, so if we don't get to everyone's question this evening, just a reminder, we will follow up next week or two. Thank you. Martine?
Awesome. Well, move-in. Wow. One of the busiest times for Sarah, myself, and all my other colleagues. And it's so much work for us because of how well and structured and organized it ends up becoming. So basically, there's 4 different courts on the Hill. It's basically, if you're thinking of like a city, it's like 4 different districts. There's the Deneb, there's the Sproul Sunset, there's Rieber, and there's Hedrick. And each of the particular courts, we all operate with the like similar move-in structure where all of the residents go to one particular location where they know well beforehand to just go and unload and park. And then from there, some move-in assistants, which are called MIAs for short, are there to help unload vehicles and push the carts with you all. Oh yeah, and everyone actually, we have really large move-in carts. That is quite the luxury, if I may add, because a lot of people have small cases of luggage. I've seen people come with like 4 different cars of luggage as well. So we have enough carts to accommodate any type of size. But yeah, the move-in assistants help you push your carts, and they are returning students, and some of them are first-year students as well. But they're people that know a little bit about the communities that your students are going to live. So they'll be able to help you like, oh, this is where your particular room is and all that jazz. But the best part, I think, is that it's very smooth. It's designed to make it very, very quick to get from like here, unpacked to your room. And then after that, the parent is asked to move to a different parking location for longer term parking if the parent wants to stay and just have a great remainder of the day. I think the best part of Move-In Weekend is I believe that the student gets up to 4 additional swipes that day if they want to share a meal with their particular parent, if they're here for like either breakfast, lunch, or dinner.
Parents, I was going to say, parents, do not miss out. The food at UCLA is awesome. I have to tell you, it's excellent.
We are like the best food of colleges in the entire nation. So definitely, if you're thinking of maybe should I come or not to help my student move, I definitely say do it, just at least for the food, and if anything. I think a very common concern is for students that are coming from out of state when dealing with move-in and stuff like that. So I think the best part about the move-in process is that students get to decide when they get to move in based off the certain time slots that are emailed to them. And after you factor your own particular schedule into the matter, you can choose throughout the move-in weekend, which I believe it starts as early as Thursday and then goes through Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you want a good little side tip, most people tend to move in, I believe, on that Friday and Saturday. So if you want to come in with a massive rush, you can go with those two. But if you want a little, if you want a bit lighter, I would definitely probably advise to come that Sunday because most of the returning students actually tend to move in that day because they know that information ahead of time of like, I don't want to deal with thousands and thousands of people because it's a lot more relaxed. And if you choose a particular move-in time throughout the day, it tends to be a lot more hectic. The ones closer to the end of the evening, like 7, 8, or 9 p.m., those tends to be less hectic if you just want a more peaceful time of moving in as well. But in regards to out-of-state students and international students, if you're a part of the orientation session, that's the very last one, which this year I believe is 112, you get the option of extending your stay but it's at a fee though, where you can just stay at your particular probably orientation room, or they move you to a different room, so you can just stay on campus and then move into your fall room at the end of that particular stay cycle. But other than that, I would definitely say try to bring a lot of water and be prepared to be moving your stuff from a park location, which is very close by to your particular living environment. And it'll be quite the structured day. Our biggest entire motto for that day is to make the student and the parent have the best experience as possible and not be as stressed and hectic. And if anytime there's questions, there's so many volunteers throughout the entire in the unloading and the loading zone, throughout just standing around campus, as well as anyone that's living in your building. Everyone's designated with the move-in day shirt. It changes colors from year to year. Last year it was blue. Maybe it'll stay the same, but it's a free shirt, so I'm always happy to get it. We're always very friendly to answer any questions.
I have to say just quickly that the move-in weekend is just so well done. It really is. And there's refreshments around if you need a glass of water or a pick-me-up. It's a great way to ask questions, meet new families. And also, I just wanted to mention in Westwood, which is within walking distance, there's a Target and Whole Foods and Trader Joe's. If you need hangers, even the bookstore on campus has it. So don't despair. There is a lot of resources and stores around. But I see a question that just came in. And also, this is from Mindy R. And Mindy is asking, what is the best way to deliver dorm stuff for my daughter? And do you allow us to ship this stuff directly to the dorm ahead of time? And how far ahead of time?
So students aren't recommended or aren't really advised. I don't think they even have the option to deliver anything before they move into their room. And they're actually advised to, if they're shipping large boxes or I don't know, furniture or whatever they're wanting to ship here, they tend to ask them to do it after they move into their room. And the way our mailing system works is we have a centralized mailing center located in in our Sunset Village area. And basically, if you ever get a package, it'll be routed there. Everyone has the same mailing address. It is 330 Geneve Drive. And then after that, it is their room number. And from their name and their room number, that's how the mailing center knows what student to contact. And they get, I think, about a nice week window to come pick up the package before it's mailed back, because then at that time, maybe it was shipped incorrectly, and then therefore the mailing center decides to ship it back. But yeah, they also offer a service. I believe if it's over 50 pounds, the mailing center will ship it up to the front desk that is the closest to where you're living, so you don't have to lug it around. And I think the best part also is that the mailing center also offers move-in looking style carts. for if anyone just, maybe it wasn't 50 pounds, but you're not about lifting something or carrying it upstairs. You can roll it around the hill and just get to your particular location.
Okay. All right. Here's one from Robert B. And it's, can items be stored between orientation and move-in day?
Items can be stored during that time period, but UCLA, we don't have our like a storage service on campus. The storage service that we do partner with is called Box Camp. I'm unaware though that if they do offer for between that little time frame, but I know you can purchase storage at any time from them, or if there's any storage nearby.
Okay, very good. All right, I'm going to move on to the next question. And Sarah, there's again quite a few different questions. So let me pose the question. And it is, what do students typically bring with them when they move into the residence halls? And what do they quickly realize that they could have left at home? Do you have any tips for packing and or what students should wait to purchase until they are in the space? Sarah?
It's a great question. My short answer would be students usually bring too many things. It's not a very big room. And so I would say like really think hard and prioritize like what you need to make this space feel like your home. So you know that you're going to have a bed, some type of either closet or wardrobe. You're going to have some form of a desk and some like drawers that you can put things in, but you don't have a ton of space. Even our singles, honestly, like you don't have that much more space than that. And so sort of just anticipating it. I would say like bring the things that are most important to you in regards to like what makes you feel happy, what makes you feel like you can be academically successful, what makes you feel comfortable. And so I think just like thinking that through. So I do see a lot of students bring like TVs or like refrigerator microwave situations. You may or may not need that because the reality is that you have a meal plan. If you're living on campus, you have to. And most people, I don't really know any students that actually really cook in their dorm room. They're mostly eating in the dining hall. And so it's pretty, you don't need it that much. And all of our residence halls do have like a common shared microwave. That being said, I totally brought all of those things to college minus the TV. And so I totally get it. We do have like a company that we contract with. The information should be on the housing webpage where you can rent what's called a micro fridge. That's actually our preferred if you want a microwave fridge situation. It's actually like the microwave is attached to the refrigerator. It's really cool and eco-friendly because when you're using the microwave, it turns off the power to the refrigerator. If you think about it, you're never microwaving anything for that long. So your fridge is totally fine. And so it really saves on power for the rooms. We don't want to be like blowing circuits all the time in the residence halls. And so those are like the preferred spaces. What often happens is like once you get your assigned roommate or roommates, you usually would reach out to them and kind of like figure out like if anyone is bringing any larger items. I've seen a lot of people be really successful with like kind of collaborating on those things. So saying like, I'll bring a printer for all of us. This person, these other two people are going to split the fee for the micro fridge and sort of just evening it out so that everybody feels like they're contributing. Because realistically, if you're in a triple and all three people bring a large television, you're going to have nowhere to put it. So just be really like proactive and communicative. So I would wait to buy like anything that you think is kind of like a shared item or could be a shared item until you get your roommate assignment to figure out like if one of you really wants it or if you even need it. I would say like you could in advance, you could get like your bedding. It's an extra long twin for all the beds. And like really you just need like your clothes and any school supplies. So if you're like taking a lot of math classes, you might want your graphing calculator. People do tend to bring like their laptops, iPads, whatever you like to use to like write on, you're taking notes on. We do have computer labs on both on the Hill and on campus. If you don't have a computer, that you can use those spaces. You really don't need a printer because there are places where you can print for a small fee on the Hill and on campus. There's also lots of free printing on campus. And so I think just thinking thinking through like, what do you really need? Because I think people like really want to bring like a lot of decorations, or they want to bring a lot of like electronics or things like that. But if you're really focusing on school, you might not need those things in the moment. I would also consider like maybe, like I said, things that you need to be happy or successful. Like if you're really into playing basketball, bring your basketball with you, because there's basketball courts on campus, or your tennis racket, if that makes you feel happy. But if you're like someone that like has a tennis racket, but you play every other year, don't bring it.
Thank you.
I'm trying to think if there's any other packing wise. Like I really do think most people tend to bring too many things. So I think like anytime you're like, am I really going to use this or not? Leave it at home, because you can always have like your friends or family ship it to you later. After you move in, if you feel like you're really missing it. We have great weather here, so you don't need a parka or anything like that. And so like you really don't have to have too many things.
Thank you so much. All right, well, I see a question here from George. He's asking, what is the best way for international students to fit in? Is it easy for them to fit in? So I know we've got some of our international family on the phone, and maybe if you can address that for us.
Absolutely. Actually, the residence hall I've worked with for the last 2 years has one of the highest proportions of international students. So I've worked with a lot of international students in the last 2 years. I think our international students fit in beautifully on campus. I think that UCLA is the campus that really strongly values diversity and different perspectives. I will say that there's a very robust community of international students. And so if they feel nervous or anxious about that, there's a lot of support from the DASHU International Center for students and scholars. They do a lot of really outstanding programs, both ones that go throughout the whole year. They have like an international student buddy where they'll actually pair them up with like a domestic student so that they have like an intentional relationship right from the start. They also do language buddies, which I think is a really cool program, where they pair people up. So if you're from like a Spanish speaking country and there's someone who's trying to learn Spanish, they'll pair you up so you can practice. So there's a lot of different like ongoing opportunities. They also host a variety of off-campus trips that are, they're often like for a small fee, or also like some of them are free for international students to go, be able to meet other students, and also have experiences that aren't just on campus. And so if you are an international student, I would highly recommend making sure, I think you're automatically on their listserv, but staying on their listserv, joining their Facebook group, watching their invitations, because they do a lot of really outstanding events and programs. And then just kind of talking about what Martine was talking about earlier in the discussion, which is that like all of our communities have like resident assistants, and we have both like a building wide, a floor wide, and a hill wide community. And so we really try to make sure that students find their fits within any, if not all of those. And so there will be a lot of like intentional opportunities for people to meet other folks, make those connections. And I think those are really where those that community happens. And so if you're an international student that's nervous, or you have an international student, encourage them to go out to their floor events, to go to programs on the Hill. They're often free. They're almost always free. And so that's a really great way for them to meet people, both other international students and people that live around them.
Thank you. I do know, being an out-of-state family, my daughter was very active with different clubs, and it's a wonderful way to just meet people. And living in the dorms, she also met people. So I can say the UCLA Bruin family is very welcoming. All right, I'm going to move on. I noticed that the clock is ticking, so let's get to question number 8 now. Martine, what support staff is available to students living in the residence halls?
So primarily just focusing on the residence halls, I would say that there's 4 different types of support staff. 3 of them are full-time professional staff, and then the 4th one is an amazing student staff member. Just to summarize the 3 pro staff really quickly, there's the resident director, such as Sarah. Then there's myself, the assistant resident director. We are always here if a resident ever needs any help. Like, I personally love to talk to any resident I get a chance to. Like, our doors are always open if they just want to either come and ask us any type of like roommate questions, or if honestly some residents get lost and I've always had to answer like, hey, do you know where this is at? Of course, I'll direct you to where that's at, because I've been here for quite a while. I think the resident director also just is a big support system because there's a resident director on duty every single day for the entire 365 days of the year. They rotate on a cycle, and they're there if there is any support needed after hours, of course, for any students on the Hill. And then the third professional staff member, I love this particular staff member because it's a faculty member. It's a professor that works for UCLA. They're called the faculty in residence. Every single community, and we have 16 next year. It's going down because we're combining 16 residential communities with one faculty in resident. Actually, no, there's 21 faculty in residence because the larger halls have 2 faculty in residence. And they're from a variety of majors of study, and they're there to help just meet residents and to help humanize professors. They are utilized for different programming to just give students that opportunity to just talk to a professor. Who knows, maybe these professors might be the future letters of recommendation for your students when they're going to grad school or for a variety of jobs. And the fourth particular support system, which I think is one of the most important and the most used for support for the residents on the Hill, is the resident assistant. It is a student. They can be as young as a second year here, and they can be as old as whatever year, if they're a 4th year or a 5th year continuing student here. And they're basically there from day one, actually before day one, because they come to training in the summer to be able to just learn of all the opportunities and how to fully engage and support and just inform and be a good reference tool for the students. But throughout the entire year, their primary mission is to create a community on that particular floor by making it inclusive, by being able to foster different connections and introducing residents to other residents. The biggest dream of every RA is to create a family on that particular floor. And they do that by a variety of engagements that their assistant resident director actually designs them to do. And they're always there if a resident ever just wants to even talk as well. So RAs, I see constantly have their door open and just provide some sort of counseling for them. If they ever just are there, if they want someone to just hear them talk. And then some RAs have been in their past new student advisors as well, or have some sort of high knowledge of academia here and are able to even provide some sort of academic counseling support for their particular students as well. But yeah, the RA is one of the key roles in just helping students, even from their first year all the way till their last year on the Hill, just transition and just introducing them to new resources, as well as just making friends.
That's great. Thank you so much, Martine. Do you know what the ratio is, like the RA to the number of students?
It varies per community. In the communities that are larger, that have like over 100 residents, have 2 RAs per floor. So the average is like one RA tends to have like anywhere from 40 to 60 residents. And that's how they tend to average out in how many RAs to put on a particular floor. But a variety of the communities here, such as all of the plazas, most of the shared plazas, and even the suites tend to have just like 1 RA per that particular community because their resident population is a little lower.
Okay, thank you so much. So Sarah, moving on, I've got a question for you, please. What does security look like for students living on the Hill? Are students allowed to have guests stay in their rooms?
It's a great question. I think that security on the Hill is pretty good. It's actually great. I feel really comfortable like walking around and being on campus at all times. I think UCLA definitely feels like a bubble, and not that nothing bad ever happens within that bubble, but like it's interesting because even though we're within Los Angeles, like when you're on campus, you're really on campus, and you're kind of in this completely other land, which is great. I would say in particular, on the Hill, all of the halls, it depends on the residence hall style, but minimally there's a lock on your door that you have to use like your UCLA Bruin card, like it dips in the door to allow you into your space. Once you're in that space, only you and your roommates would have access to that space. The amount of locks you have to key into between the front door of your building and that can vary by building just ever so slightly. but usually your actual room is behind more than one door. And so, for example, where I'm working right now, Rieber Terrace, people have to like key into the front door. So you have to have a key card that is for UCLA and that you live in that building. You have to like tap it or swipe it on the door. It unlocks the door for you, and then you can go in. After hours, we have what we call access monitors, who are these really fantastic students that make sure that the people who are like keying into the building are who they say they are. So people have to additionally swipe in with them, show that they live in the building, and then they're allowed to go upstairs into the building or past them into the building. And so if they don't live in the building, if they're like a guest, they have to sign that guest in and say, and there's only a certain number of guests per person allowed into the building. That being said, you are allowed to have overnight guests. We ask that you not have them more than a couple days per month. That is a conversation that needs to happen between like the roommates and the individual. It is listed in our policy, but it's something where like you would have to be signing them in when you're bringing them into the building. You have to have your guest with you at all times that they're in the building. So you can't just like peace out, go to class, leave your guest in your room and like hope for the best, or give them your ID and say, go do whatever you want. You're responsible for them at all times when they're here. And so like you need to be there you have to have your Bruin card on you at all times. And so you are like fully responsible for them. In terms of like overnight guests, it's really up to the roommate agreement that I mentioned earlier. And so you really want to like write in your roommate agreement whether you're okay with guests spending the night. It's really up to the roommates. And then from there, like whether people are comfortable having guests of the same sex or opposite sex, different roommate pairs have different ideas and expectations about like what they're comfortable with. Our residence halls are all co-ed. And so, but they're like same sex by room, like the actual room that people live in. And so it's really up to like the discussion with them and their roommate, what they feel comfortable with. I would say in terms of other security, people tend to ask questions about like windows and locking and like, what about my valuables or my laptop? Should I keep those things locked up? It's really up to your own comfortability. I would say I think every single time I've heard of any kind of theft on the Hill, it's been a crime of opportunity. And while I'm sure that's not 100% true, every time I've heard of it, it's been something where like someone, when I talk to the resident, I'll say like, oh, did you have your door locked? And they'll say, no, I left it propped open with a shoe and I went to my friend's room down the hall for 2 hours. That's when things get taken. I'm just being honest. And so, and it's pretty hard for us to like regulate that when you leave your like door and or window wide open and you're not home. That's kind of true, like, you know, wherever you live. So that's not really that different. But you also, all of our desks on the Hill have like a lock component. So if you are someone that has some things you want to lock up, whether it's medication, laptop, electronics, etc., passport, you can always bring like a little like combination lock and put it on that drawer if you want to have security. I've also seen students bring small safes if that makes them feel comfortable. But I would say we have a very like low rate of crime. All of our crime statistics, though, are published by our university police department if you want to check them out. But the other thing that I would say is it is really usually a crime of opportunity or like someone like letting someone into a space that they don't really know very well, things like that. And so I would say just make sure you keep your door locked. Don't let random people into the building that you don't know. Sometimes people will like lurk outside and they'll say, oh, I'm trying to visit a friend. I always just say to them like, well, your friend can come outside and get you.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Not that awkward.
Very good. Thank you, Sarah. Say, I have a question here from Jenny S. and Scott N. What are the drug and alcohol policies on the Hill due to some students being over the age of 21, please?
That's a great question. So we don't allow, obviously we don't have any, we don't allow alcohol for people who are under 21 years old. We also are smoke-free and tobacco-free campus. That includes a common one lately has been vaping. So you can't vape on campus. You can't smoke tobacco or marijuana on campus. And if you are 21, you can't have underage people in your space if there's alcohol present. So there's very few rooms on our campus that would have like 2 21-year-olds. So there really shouldn't be alcohol on campus. That's the short answer.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's see. So Martine, I have a question here, please. And it's about addressing roommate conflicts. So how are those resolved, and what should a student do if they would like to change rooms?
I think first before talking about how roommate conflicts are dealt with, I want to just get into just what are the general problems that create roommate conflicts. And I think the biggest issue that creates conflict is the lack of or the fear of communication among roommates. Every single time as an RA back in my day, even as an assistant resident director now, whenever I talk to anybody and they tell me, oh, I have an issue with my roommate, I need to move out, I always tell them, well, have you ever talked to them? And 99% of the time, it's like, no, I don't want to. It's weird. I don't know how. So I think how we address roommate conflicts is first, once we start talking about like, okay, you haven't talked to them about it, let's give you pointers or discussion topics on how you can go about an approach. That's how I always tell my resident assistants, and how as an RA myself back in the day, I always approached any roommate conflict rather than just give up and be like, just go to the RD and tell them that it's horrible and you want to room. Like, nah, it doesn't get that quickly. We always want to help every resident personally grow and be able to have those difficult conversations and tell them, first, just go talk to your roommate. Maybe they don't even know this thing that they do, that it's bothering you. Maybe they think it's like, oh, it's just a common thing. So I think first of all, we always start having those conversations of, let's talk about how you can talk with your roommate. But some conflicts, which is actually not that much, are a little bit unresolvable, or there's roommates that just don't want to budge or accommodate or compromise in any way. After that has been established, we tend to either meet with them as a collective if they want to reprimand it, and just talk about a solution, talk about some sort of agreement. But if for some reason nothing is able to be achieved, throughout the school year, we have room swap nights that happen once a quarter. I think it's week 2, it's sometimes during week 2. It happens for 2 nights, and a resident, if they don't want to even talk to anyone about it and they just want to swap rooms, if they come to that particular room night after filling out the change of room assignments, which is short for CAR, they can come and just see if there's anyone that's willing to switch in their particular room. That's the easiest option if someone just wants to just switch without having to talk to anybody. But if they if they need to talk to somebody, they'll probably go through their resident assistant or come talk to the RD or the ARD about ways of how to have that conversation or have a mediated conversation with everyone else. But they can change their room if there is no solution of fixing that particular roommate conflict.
Thank you very much, Martine. All right, I'm just going to switch gears a little bit, talking about the dining halls. So Sarah, what kind of variety, please, is available in the dining halls, and do students have access to them around the clock? And then when you answer the question, I know you had shown the Bruin card, and if you can also answer, what can the Bruin card be used to pay for, and how can parents easily add money to this card? And that's coming from Masami I and Jatinder S.
Awesome. So our dining halls, as mentioned before, are amazing. I worked on multiple campuses. They are far and away the best dining hall experiences. Honestly, as a professional staff member at other campuses, I avoid eating in the dining halls, and here I love it. So there's a really wide variety. I think if you have a craving, you can probably find it on the Hill. So there's 4 main dining halls. I won't go into a ton of detail, but they kind of have like rough themes around them. And so there's Covell. Covell is kind of like Mediterranean themed. They have like a pasta bar. They have kosher and halal options. They have like a mezze bar with like hummuses and delicious things like that. Clearly, I'm a fan of that part. And then there's Bruin Plate, which I think is one of the most discussed ones because it's like the healthy one. I love Bruin Plate too. I'm a fan. People feel very strongly about Bruin Plate, just to warn you. They either love it or they hate it. Bruin Plate has like fantastic vegan and vegetarian options. All of our dining halls do, by the way. But Bruin Plate in particular, they have a lot of really healthy things. They don't tend to have like cookies or brownies for dessert. They have like bread and nice jam for dessert. It's so true, and fruit. And so if you are someone who loves to eat healthy, likes to try unique foods, likes to try unique vegetables, Bruin Plate is like what's up. Deneb has a lot of, I would say, comfort food as one part. They often have like chicken wings, mac and cheese, I even had like fried okra there one time. It was fantastic. And then they have a lot of Mexican, Central American food. So like I've recently had really great pupusas there. They have tacos, they have enchiladas, that kind of stuff. And they always make their own salsa in-house. It's fantastic. And then the last main dining hall is what's called Feast, which is in Rieber. Feast is all Asian. It's Pan-Asian. And so they try to cover like all different kinds of Asian food, including like South Asian. And so there's traditional Chinese food, Japanese food, there's sushi nights, there's pho, there's curry, you name it, Hawaiian food. It's really fantastic selection of different kinds of Asian food. You can look at all the menus for all these places online. That's what I do all the time is I look online and I see like which menu do I like, and then I'll go check it out. Those are the 4 like main dining halls. Those are the ones that we call all you care to eat. So when you swipe in with your Bruin card, you can get as much food as you want while you're there. And then you like take your own dishes up and you like put them at the dish area. They clean them for you, and then you head out. The other places you can eat on campus are what we call like quick service. So like you can go in, there's Cafe 1919, which is Italian, pizzas and sandwiches. There's, I'm totally blanking. BCAF, which is like sandwiches, salads, and coffee pastries. There is The Study, which is the newest one. It's open till really, really, really late. It's actually open around the clock, but the dining hall, I believe, is open till 3 a.m., 2 a.m. Looking at Martine, 2. Okay, perfect. And then the last one is, and The Study is kind of like, I would describe it as like high-end European, like sandwich, salad, pastry, coffee, kombucha situation. It's like a really fancy coffee shop on steroids. And then they do breakfast through dinner options. You can even like swipe out a baguette with like snacks on the side. It's really great. And then the last one is right next to me in Rieber Terrace, Rendezvous. It's split into 2 sides. One side is kind of like very similar to like a Chipotle type thing where you can build your own like burrito or bowl. The other side is kind of like Asian themed. It sort of feels a little bit like Panda Express, where like you can get like different kinds of like Asian food to go. So those are like all the dining options. So you can tell there's like a lot of different things you can get. Denev also has late night, which is a student favorite. You go like later in the evening. I think it's like 9 to midnight most nights. And they have like chicken wings, burgers, French fries, like that kind of stuff. Talking about the Bruin card, you can load money online. That's the easiest way to do it. If you're on campus, you can also go up to in all of the residence hall, all the main hall front desk areas. There's like a machine where you can tap the card and you can just like feed money directly into it. And so you can load it on there. You can use this for laundry. You can use it to pay for things at the bookstore. You can use it. So for example, if you have a meal plan, say you have like 15 meals a week, but you really want a gelato late night at a Cafe 1919, it's fantastic. You could like pay for just one gelato with your money on your card if you wanted to. But you can decide whether you want it to be easy pay or like any or just dining dollars on here. But you can also use it to buy like food on campus and some of those other pieces. So you can use your Bruin card. There's also a whole list of businesses in Westwood where you can like pay for things with money on your Bruin card.
Thank you. Yeah. All right, I see we just have a couple of minutes left. So I just have a couple of miscellaneous questions here. Let's see, Martine, is housing guaranteed at UCLA for all 4 years?
Well, unfortunately, it's not, unless you're a Regent Scholar, have some sort of just honor that allows you to get 4 years. Housing does pride itself on guaranteeing every student 3 years of housing if they're a first year. And if you're a transfer, since you're only here for 2 years, we only guarantee you that first initial year. And you can use, in your first year, you tend to be assigned a particular housing, but for your second year and your third year of your guaranteed housing, if you choose to just stay with university housing, you actually get to choose to where your exact location of where you want to live. If you want to live like on the 4th floor of Denev Hawley, then in this particular room next to the bathroom, you can totally do that, but not until your second or your third year of housing here.
Okay. And then if one of you can please answer, here's a question from Sammy P. Do students have to leave during winter and spring breaks? And if they can stay, is there an extra charge to stay on campus during those breaks?
Go for it, Sarah.
Okay, you can stay over breaks. So over the Thanksgiving, there's just a couple days off. You can stay that whole time. We actually do a Thanksgiving on the Hill for people who are here. If you want to do Thanksgiving, but you can't go back home. During winter break, it's usually about 3 weeks long. It depends on where the quarters fall each year. That's the only one you have to pay additionally to stay in your room, but you can stay on campus. And over that winter closure holiday, there's no like dining halls open. So we do offer like a variety of like events over that break. But that one is one where you want to kind of like plan ahead, figure out some things you can like cook in like a microwave probably in your hall or in your room, and or a lot of students order takeout, or they meet other students that are like also staying over the break and they order takeout for that week. And then spring break, you can also stay over that week as well.
Thank you very much. Well, I see the clock here. It's the end of our conversation this evening. Sarah and Martine, thank you so much for the wealth of information that you were able to share with us this evening. We've learned everything from the dormitories and off-campus housing, also to the food, to the Bruin card, to handling roommate situations, etc. I know there are so many questions that came in prior to the call and during the call. And like I said, in the next week or two, we will get the answers out to everyone. I want to thank everyone out there who joined us tonight and submitted your questions. If you would like to hear or share the recorded version of this webinar, it will be available shortly. So if you need to listen to it again, your feedback is so important and valuable for the continued growth of this program. So please be sure to complete the follow-up survey, which you should receive tomorrow via email. And I am so excited to share that we have one more special summer installment of Bruin Family Insights planned for you. The topic will be called Inside Undergraduate Admissions, and it will take place on Wednesday, August 22nd at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We will feature UCLA Undergraduate Admission Director Gary Clark and Deputy Director Mike Drish. We look forward to chatting with you about this next month. Have a wonderful evening and go Bruins. Good night, everyone.